So, welcome here in our Voice from Heaven series of 3 days to awakening. And we are looking here either of actions in our mind on first day, second day, or then in the revelation of the third day. But as you might have noticed in this now sequence of already 18 episodes, most part we have used actually to have a look at the first and second action of mind that lets us remember that our mind is whole, is healed, is perfect, and that we do not have any use anymore to go back to dreaming, to go back to believing in falsity or in self-made concepts of hallucinations in our mind that were basically all held as the answer for our awakening here in time space, right? Everything still nicely put on the perceptual level, on perception, and were tools or medium for salvation. And this is really where at this point, Jesus Christ, I'm teaching here A Course in Miracles, I'm teaching here my experience with whole mind, with Christ mind, I'm teaching here my own self-recognition as whole, perfect, and healed. And I'm using here as the means these words from Jesus Christ in A Course in Miracles or in a transcript that came through and describes also these actions of mind, of coming here into time-space, of finding oneself in separation, in fear, in exchange and relationship with form association, making a firm decision of how we want to really see and experience ourselves, literally deciding not really against anything, but deciding for a new way of seeing, for a new way of thinking. And this decision for vision, this decision for the alignment with the Holy Spirit is really our guidance. And this is the guidance that is now in your consciousness, in your mind. This is not something that is easily being exchanged or replaced and and tomorrow you get some other thing. No, this is a guidance from out of time for all times. And if you stick with it, I promise you that you will experience also the success of seeing a forgiven world, the success of feeling happiness within, the success of seeing there's a love that emanates from my heart, my soul, my mind. And it is this love that communicates. It is this love that brings salvation to my world. It is this love that establishes also communication in the act of forgiveness. And of course, we all are here in time space in order to experience ourselves in these successful events, experiences of how forgiveness works, and that forgiveness is accomplished in that alignment, in that joining with Christ mind. It is literally He, the Holy Spirit, Christ, walking with me as my teacher that shows me and directs me to look beyond any form, because all that is form is only seeing the past, is always just seeing what is transitory, it always just seeing the meanings that I have given to everything throughout all time, and we are talking here about 40,000 years, or maybe you say, well, I have enough with 5,000 years. It doesn't matter. Or maybe you say, I have enough of just this lifetime and just a few years looking back and how I made up ideas and concepts in order to establish for myself some trigger points or some maybe angular posts, like in the pyramid, the angular rocks, and that rock that on which you build literally the temple within your mind. But those rocks are thoughts of peace, thoughts of certainty in the alignment, thinking with the Holy Spirit, being literally with the Master, walking with the Master, and so extending and sharing the Master's teaching moment by moment, that the truth, reality, as who we are, who I am, has nothing to do with the values I've given to forms. And I'm especially looking today at also not just at form as bodies and how the world presents itself, but really as the form of disciplinary forms, rituals, doctrine, in which we were caught up for thousands and thousands of years, believing that following those forms would offer us salvation or would bring salvation. And of course, this was the complete antithesis to the acceptance that the salvation comes from me and only from me and cannot come from anyone or anything else. And this is taught through the contact with the Master. This is the clarity. The Master shows, hey, look, I don't care what you do. I don't care how you choose to experience yourself in your connection and in your relationships with your form associations. But let's not give any meaning to that, but really join in what is eternally true. That form does not represent eternity. Form can never represent eternity. Eternity is who I am, who you are. And in that union with Him, we come to experience and to feel literally that light energy that emanates and extends throughout the entire universe. So this is my welcome. Welcome. I'm very, very glad you're here and listening to this. And I'm welcome for having him on my side and listening literally to his teaching. Now we're coming in the practice periods, if it doesn't matter when you really listen to that, because every lesson of this Course in Miracles is actually an offer to apply and to practice forgiveness and love and come to an experience of being already in union with that light of heaven, with God's mind. But if you are just starting with me in this sequence of the 120s, 130s lessons, 121 to 140, and then comes again a 10 days review, we are here entering in the beginning to very important lessons in the application and in the practice for us, to us. And so it becomes the action, the experience of forgiveness, and coming to the experience of gratitude and being in gratitude. Literally one thing and one experience that accompanies us throughout all our relationships that we have. We have forged it maybe first in order to survive, maybe first in order to guarantee that the full revelation of not being a body, of not existing in a body form, could be, under quotes, overcome by still giving it some meaning, holding it a meaning, and doing something in order to continue to telling myself, but here I am, and I'm part of this world, and I'm in this body, and da 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 da. Now, with the clarity of that guidance, we are literally liberated, released from these limited thought forms, and our mind opens up to what has already revealed itself in us, to that light that is creative light, to that light that heals, to that light that represents perfection. So, in this course, in the lesson 121, I want to share here some sentences with you because he talks about this necessity of the teacher that must be a teacher other than yourself, right? You taught yourself, but you taught yourself wrongly. You taught yourself poorly. You taught yourself, as I was just talking about, within the frame of being bound within your values of form, within your rituals, within your disciplinary mode that you were connecting with success in your awakening, in your salvation. And now the teacher who is other than yourself represents that other self in you, you know, the true self in you, the infinite, eternal, the one self, the perfect self in you. And now through him, you learn. So there is a learning process very naturally occurring simply by joining with him and accepting what he offers, which is at some point accepting his guidance, which is an action of letting go of surrender of one's own self concept, of one's own guiding ideas that were still just ending in disaster or in death. Now, to learn how to forgive the self that you think you made, right? You made the little self. You made also the little self that you call your neighbor in the former association. You did not make him as who he truly is, but as what you see and perceive, and the expressions of habits, of behavior, of personal views. That is all that I made in my mind, that you made. And now to forgive the self that you think you made for yourself and for the others. And now you are invited and you can come to that experience of letting it disappear. It's all about letting it disappear because the world is just a construct in your mind. And if you're willing to let it disappear, of course, you must first be willing to let yourself disappear. You can only let yourself disappear if you have enough attraction of something more valuable or more desirable, of more light, let's say, of love that overcomes all conceptual perspectives. And once this is at hand and experienced, of course, you're very much willing not just to let go and let your own association disappear, but also let the world disappear. And thus you return your mind as one to Him, Him capitalized, Him who is your true self, your one self, and He who can never sin. That's how it expresses it. And that sin is, of course, the idea of being just in one's own will associated, or the idea of separation on the level of self. But He is one, He is all there is in the entire universe. He is the representation of your real self. And from there he goes, very interesting perspective, that each unforgiven mind, so he goes now showing you, showing each and every one of us what an unforgiven mind still makes havoc and represents in also as a block to that awareness of what is already opening up. So you could say that is literally the enemy as yourself. That enemy, that the only enemy really that could possibly be perceived or experienced in the result of how it comes back could only be my own self-concept, yourself. So each unforgiving mind presents you with an opportunity to teach, an opportunity to demonstrate the truth, to demonstrate something that goes beyond, right? An opportunity to teach your own how to forgive itself. It is still the action of looking beyond what eyes cannot see, of looking beyond the meanings of perception. And so, how to forgive becomes very, very important to on the way of experiencing our awakening. And each one awaits release from hell, he says, through you, each one, and turns to you imploringly for heaven here and now. And it has no hope, but you become its hope. You see, this is really also where we need each other and how we use each other. We literally use each other in the example and demonstration of forgiveness, because each one of us has the necessity and wants, above all else, nothing else than to be in that experience of here and now, which we call heaven. And so to teach my own, to teach myself, to teach you as myself, to forgive, and the necessity to, first of all, forgive myself, forgive yourself, is really where the hope lies. There's no hope beyond. There's no hope in any other concept. The only hope is if I come to an action that goes to a recognition beyond that meaning that I have given it and have called it. And if I, even if, and maybe especially on the level of spiritual concepts, spiritual discipline, spiritual. Now I got it. And so all that is at the end just circling on the timeline, or like a wheel that has no end and has not really a way out. The way out of the wheel, the way out of time space, is through forgiveness, because it is forgiveness that offers us an experience of thought beyond what the meaning of the form is. And as its hope, do you become your own. You become your own hope. The unforgiving mind must learn through your forgiveness that it has been saved from hell. And as you teach salvation, you will learn. Yet all your teaching and your learning will be not of you, but of the teacher who was given you to show the way to you. It's literally the Master himself, Jesus Christ himself, the teacher as the voice of the Holy Spirit. And that has been given us. And this is just congratulations. This is just an thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, I see him. He is here. He's here. I'm listening right now to his voice, and that's within my own mind, within my own allowance to listen to a voice and a thought form that unravels all past ideas, that undoes also all reality of meaning that I've held for so long, about myself, about you, about what is valuable, what are the means for salvation, and still looking outside myself, still placing it in this place, this temple, this personality of teacher, or these words and meanings that he was saying, This is now, here we are going the entire way, that the teacher that has been given me is really that teacher that shows me the way to my true self. And that shows me the way in which we both go home out of time. Right? This is an out of time experience. And so I was just here using a few of those 1.5 paragraphs in that lesson 121 in the middle of the lesson in order to demonstrate that this is not a little thing and this is not something that we could possibly conceptualize or hold in concepts, but this is really everything that we have asked for and has released us from fear, because it was that staying in the limitation of the mind that also kept the fear going on. And fear will always be in connection with a body identity. As long as there's a body identity held as real, fear will be the experience in the mind. But it is still all only about what is in the mind and how we see it in the mind and how we hold it in the mind. And yeah, how we are willing then to allow that the miracle shows us that there is another way of looking at this. And so I'm going into this transcript of Only One Love Is, or 3 Days to Awakening, as it will be republished. So I'm seeing here that unconditional, spontaneous acting, being yourself, only can be expressed once the relationship with the issue has been let go by the willingness to stop for a moment and not activate a thought of the memorized ideas, to not know anything. Now, let's look at that, an unconditional, spontaneous acting, being in action, being myself, fooling myself. So, fully, totally, completely, it only can be expressed once that the relationship between myself and myself, literally, which is also my relationship with you, is the world, with any presented issue that comes from the past that will present itself, because what, as long as perception is involved, there will be meanings that come into consciousness, and those meanings are literally yearning for transformation. So to let go of that, we need willingness, little willingness. That's really all that is needed. And also in that willingness to see there's no solution by running along, looking for the solution in every corner, but willingness to just stop, to just be still a moment. I will be still an instant and go home, teaches lesson 182, isn't it? So the willingness to stop for a moment, the willingness to not counteract or react with something that is known, that is accumulated, that is believed of being a solution here, right? But to stop for a moment, not activate a thought, to be just still for an instant of so those thoughts that we are dragging and bringing along from the past, called past memory. But there is a willingness, it is a decision to say, I'm willing to stop and to not know anything for just that instant. And that is really all that it takes as a basis, also now to connect it with the lessons around forgiveness, to have a guarantee given that forgiveness works, right? That there's our experience or recognition in our relationships are literally guaranteed successfully finished or successfully brought about and taken home. So in this, you do not give further meaning. You cannot give further meaning. The moment you give it further meaning, you are again in the loop. Yeah? But you do not give meaning to a single thought, because any single thought, you remember already, we just said it, is of the past. So how every idea, what this is, how to deal with it, how to solve it, it all comes from the past. You will never find the solution with any remedy coming from the past. That's why the only remedy there is that really works is called the atonement. The atonement is the remedy. You have already given everything you see all the meaning that it has for me, for you, right? So this lesson number 2 also confirms that I have a necessity to just stop there, not to give it any further meaning. No, I remember I have already given what I see all the meaning that it has for me. As a son of God, who you are, right? I'm the Holy Son of God. This is how you declare yourself. You simply allow yourself to be guided by the Holy Spirit. That's all. In that alignment, in that guidance of the Holy Spirit, you share revelation. You are the extension, literally, of revelatory thought. And that in that action of undoing is the word, right? Undoing of all that came from conceptual mind, that came from the past, that came from fear, that came from your false self, your false sense of self, which is the sense of personality, which is the sense of identity as a body or in a body. So all that undoing. And of all that, of course, is plainly and nothing but fear. Like every attack thought, every defense, everything that stays in that determination of split mind, of mind in separation, right? You have not come here to be concerned with anything. Always remember that. You have not come here to be in fear. You have not come here into time space to be in fear. This is a learning ground, yes, and you have come here to transform what you believed in, what you gave value, what you gave reality, what you were strengthening it in limited thought forms. So you are here for acknowledging and experiencing the complete healing of your mind, the complete undoing of your self concept. But you have not come here to be worried, to be concerned with anything of those concepts. No matter whether you see it in yourself or you see it in your neighbor, in your brother, it is at the end of the day the same, because it is oneself. It is your mind that you see. If you look within and find the issues within yourself, or if you find them in your and point it out in your brother, it's still your thought. It's still happening in your mind. So that doesn't matter either. Nothing here is really worth concern, since there is no one here but yourself. Only you are here, and you are, as the truth, in creative thought. As God created you, you're perfect as He created you. You have not become something less in truth. You only made yourself less and little and fallible and mortal and vulnerable, subject to death. So what we learn, what that directive also is don't be afraid of yourself. And seeing that there isn't anything happening somewhere, anywhere out there or separate from yourself, you naturally direct your mind inside. You must have a look inside. You must acknowledge that it is all inside your mind, your own self. And there, in the disappearance of limited thought forms, you will encounter very naturally, literally automatically, your God self, the presence of God. And you will honor your God presence. And God presence is not limited in your in or outside perception. So once you discover it inside yourself, you can extend it and share it with your outside perception in all your relationships with all your thought forms. And from there, your perfect beingness, you will find no point to choose and find someone who sees any value in the continuation of arguments or to blame your brother. Your brother is truly none other but yourself. He just reflects your own self, as you know. And you realize that to blame or to argue, to fight, right, to be right, the need to be right, is to value and to maintain the sick mind, the split mind, separation. And if you continue with these human tendencies, as I call it, the solution could only be recognized by your total inclusion of your true self in these tendencies. A total inclusion, like I'm including myself totally in these tendencies that seemingly kept me separate from you and kept you separate from me and kept us both separate from our source, God. And of course, in this sense of blaming the brother, it became like being right about, okay, the cause of the problem lies in you. The cause of all the conflict is outside myself. And this is what this guidance of the teacher, of true teacher, is restoring for us. That this cause is not outside myself, but is me, is in my own mind. Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And so what he suggests to you at this point, that is the voice of your teacher. To really be quiet, because you're coming from the tendency of getting even with yourself here. And the teacher says, hey, wait a moment. If you really think you have to get even with your brother, let's do it on the other side. That was an expression of the master teacher too. Yeah. Let's get even on the other side. Yeah, and you see that. Thank you, Dorothea. See you, Susanna. So there's a translation going on. In truth, it is going on all the time. And in truth, it is the Holy Spirit translating your own limited thoughts into that is eternal, into truth. There's nothing left here anymore. So if there's a sense of still experiencing yourself or a need of experiencing yourself in conflict, remember, you better get even on the other side. That's a nice idea. The real world, in the real world, where you will recognize that there is no point to your grievance. There is no point to get even, Because on the other side, we know there's only love awaiting us. And there's only love we are sharing. There is no necessity for anything less than love, and there is also no temptation, no attraction to anything less than all love. So here in time space, I need a miracle. You need a miracle. We all need a miracle. So first of all, be aware and see whether you have given seed in your heart for your brother you meet. To give in seed in my heart is to allow my brother be as he is, and myself not distancing nor separating myself from him. And then stop for an instant. Remember, we just said that before, the willingness to stop for a moment. Stop for an instant. Don't move with your conceptual mind. Right? That's where movement is. Conceptual mind, concepts. Don't move. Be quiet. Stop everything that you usually do, in order to maybe solve it as we shared it, that you usually do to escape from it, to escape from the solution literally, in order to remain separate. Recognize is the word. Recognize that it is you who are seeing, listening, thinking, speaking, moving, including moving the body, not somebody else, not anything out there. So be awake, be an awakened mind, stay with your true self for a moment. I will be saying, stay with the light of God for a moment. Ask for help. Ask for help where true help is. Ask for help that you will be undone, that the correction is facilitating the clarity of truth within yourself. Be the truth. Be who you are. Let the miracle happen, wherein you are shown to be light. You're shown by the miracle to be light. You're shown by the miracle that stillness. You're shown by the miracle the peace. All these qualities you truly are. And whenever you will be asked a question, you can respond from there, which is literally coming from your source, from the certainty of who you are, from your miracle mindedness, from the certainty that all is already forgiven. Let's repeat that all together. All is already forgiven. All is already over and back in heaven. And if all is already forgiven, you, I, we are already forgiven. We are already back in heaven. Now, what can you say about the world? Very simple. There is no world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm going to finish up with sharing with you something from chapter 8 in the 9th section, the first paragraphs, because it does show me this connection of perception and that is not aligned, that is sick in the mind, that is off the mark, right? Off the mark was considered the term sin, kata in Aramaic language. So in that 9th section of chapter 8, and I'm using here the version, the original version, it's part in the beginning where it says only perception can be sick because perception can be wrong. That's already very clear, isn't it? Only perception can be sick because only perception can be wrong. This is what we try to teach throughout this hour. And wrong perception is distorted willing. Wrong perception is distorted willing, which wants things to be as they are not. Wanting things to be as they are not. And that, of course, includes now your brothers. If you want your brother to be what they are not, that means to hold them in a meaning of limitation. That's wrong, distorted willing, wrong perception. The reality of everything is totally harmless because total harmlessness is the condition of its reality. Do you see where Jesus is directing you? He directs you to total harmlessness. This is what you want to experience. If you're coming from total harmlessness, everything is perceived as love, as joining, as forgiven, as compassionate. Call it as you like. But it is a condition of true reality. He says further, it is also the condition of your awareness of its reality. You do not have to seek reality. It will seek you and find you when you meet its conditions. Its conditions are part of what it is. And this part only is up to you. The rest is of itself. You need do so little because it is so powerful that your little part will bring the whole to you. Accept then the little part. Accept your little part. And let the whole be yours. See, that little part is the acceptance of the atonement, the acceptance of undoing, the acceptance of correction, is the acceptance to forgive myself. Wholeness heals because it is of the mind. Wholeness heals. All forms of sickness, even unto death, are physical expressions of the fear of awakening. Here you have it. So every expression of fear, everything that makes fear real, is the fear of awakening, is a physical expression of that fear. The attempts, he says, to reinforce unconsciousness out of fear of consciousness. But unconsciousness is impossible. That would be in the 5th paragraph. Unconsciousness is impossible. You can rest in peace only because you're awake. Only the awake can rest in peace. Healing is release from the fear of waking. Healing is release from the fear of waking. And this is where we find ourselves. And the substitution of the will to wake. The will to wake is the will to love, since all healing involves replacing fear with love. This is all there is, replacing fear with love. The Holy Spirit cannot distinguish among degrees of error. For if he thought that one form of sickness is more serious than another, he would be teaching that one error can be more real than other. But his function is to distinguish only between the false and the true, replacing the false with the true. And this is the teaching of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit will always only offer truth. He will always offer to just have a look at the falsity of the false concept, the false meaning, to give it to him, to let it go, to let it replace, and he is replacing it with truth. That is his function. So first of all, of course, you have to learn to distinguish between the false and the true. You have to learn to use reasonability of the Holy Spirit, and it will become an automatic sense that, okay, this is just a concept, this is just a meaning given, this is just of the past, this has nothing to do with reality. Once you can distinguish between the false and the truth, then of course you don't want to keep the false anymore, or you don't see a reason to defend that fear of awakening. You will gladly give it. And in that gladly giving it, you again join with your brother. You express your gratitude, you express your love. This is what we are doing, even here right now in this class. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for translating with the Holy Spirit what actually is not subject of translation in words. You're translating light into light. Isn't that great? And we all do that all the time. And so the light into light was just first a limited form of light called an illusionary concept, a meaning that has been given and how it was carved out from totality. And now we are letting it be again what it always was and always will be, what it is in truth. So truth is not a concept. God is not a concept. We are just letting go of that limitation in our way of thinking. With this, we're gonna let it go for today and just putting on the song for a few seconds more and just feel and extend that gratitude that we're sharing. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I love you with all my heart.